Hello traders, Damien here. We're looking at the YM 233 tick chart. I didn't do the 15-minute chart. I wanted to stay on the 233 because I'm getting a lot of the complex corrections and a lot more order flow to process here, which makes it difficult and gives you different things that could happen all in one area. So I'm going to stick with the 233 because I don't want to make it easy for you and give you a nice cherry pick chart of, you know, a nice trend. Price doesn't move in nice trends all the time, and I want to show you complex situations so that you can have exposure to them from my point of view, and so that when you do come across them, it may trigger something in your memory that it will cause you to reflect back on something that I have said. Now, I want to thank you for the work that you've put in with structure analysis and how pleased I am with your progress. It must be completely empowering to you to know where the market's going to go greater than 70% of the time into the future without any indicators or any fancy squiggly things all over your chart. That alone is extremely powerful and keeps you at the very least trading in the appropriate direction. Okay, we're going to take that one step further here, and what order flow analysis is going to allow us to understand is whether a particular move in a particular direction, a trend or whatever you want to call it, is gaining strength or losing strength. It would also help you form an expectation on that high or low, or new structure high or new structure low, because it's going to help you understand whether it should correct deep or shallow, and it'll help you understand if a change in movement is likely to come about. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this lesson, I'm going to show you the basic mechanics, because I want to keep these lessons kind of 20 or 30 minutes so they're not too overwhelming and too long and too much information to process. And then I'm going to make a second video probably on Monday or Tuesday without the benefit of hindsight, moving things forward, kind of like we did with the structure. But here I want you to have the complete picture in front of you and how to process this, because this can be a little tricky, a little difficult, and it is going to take more practice. There are going to be bigger challenges for you. Structure analysis was really easy. I know it can get a little complicated when we get into complex corrections, but we're going to start taking all that and understanding when to expect things like that to happen, and when to and when things are breaking down, and also when the trend may be possibly changing. Okay, when our expectations have difficulty in possibly achieving that new structure high or that new structure low. Okay, so let's get right into it. There are three processes by which we assess the strength and weakness of the market, and what you want to have as a green light to move forward in a particular direction is 2 out of the 3. Okay, 1 out of the 3 signifies weakness. 2 out of 3 signifies, a moderate degree of strength, and 3 out of 3 being the strongest that you should have. Now, those three things, those three components that make up strength and weakness, are momentum, projection, and depth. So momentum is the first thing that I assess, that I look at when prices move in a particular direction, to see whether we are gaining strength or weakness. One of the things that most people think about when they hear the word momentum is some sort of oscillator on the bottom of the screen that tells you, the volume of these candles. Well, in all actuality, you really don't need that. I mean, that's one, it's inaccurate. Two, you can see the volume in the candles. I mean, you can see that this candle had a lot of volume, and you can see that this candle had very little volume. You don't need an indicator to tell you that. It's as plain as the candle on the chart. Putting that aside, that's not how I look at momentum. I look at momentum by the angle by which price achieved that swing. Okay, so you want to pick the farthest to the left point and the farthest to the right point. Okay, and once you train your eyes to look at this, it'll be a visual process and you'll be able to process that in seconds. It's not something that's overly complicated or that you need to really think about too much. This is a small little swing here that made this swing low, but this is the actual correction. So I'm going to draw it from here, and this is the far right. Okay, this is the actual correction here. This is the far left here, and this is the far right. Now, price did achieve a couple of points higher. So however you choose to see this is fine. I'd rather see it this way because it helps me, it gives me a better representation of the pitch. Okay, and I see that price is somewhat flattening out a little bit. We see that this pitch is a little steeper than this pitch, and then this pitch, they're about the same. Maybe this one's just a tad more, but it's not steeper. Okay, so this tells us that price overall is decently strong. The pitch is not changing all too much, so we have one out of the three components that are telling us what? That price is decently strong. Okay, the next thing we want to assess is the projection. Okay, the projection occurs, Sandy, the projection occurs, okay, from the swing low right here to the next swing low. Okay, and we look at the distance between here and here as projection. And the next one is the, oops, sorry guys. Then we look at this movement here and we see this. So we have pitch weakened a little bit, but not all too much. Projection has decreased. Okay, so that's two things that are signifying to us that there is a little bit of weakening here. In this, we also see that overall, I mean, we're still producing very good new structure lows, pretty strong. These candles have a lot of strength in them, a lot of selling strength. We're not going to get into bar by bar yet. That's the next lesson. But I want you to see that this projection, okay, was less than this projection. Okay, and we want to also see that the pitch weakened a little bit. So now we want to look at the overall depth. Okay, so what we want to see here is from the swing low to the corrective swing high in this particular case. Okay, I keep trying that arrow, geez. Okay, and we want to do the same here. Okay, now here we want to grab the highest point because that's what price achieved, and I keep drawing that little arrow. Oh my god. Okay, so here we see that projection has decreased. We see that depth has increased. This swing corrected deeper than this swing. So we have two and almost three out of the three things that are telling us that what? Price action in this direction is what? Weakening. Okay, now that doesn't necessarily signify, okay, a change in trend. It does tell you that things are weakening. What does that tell you? To be alert, to pay attention to what possibly could happen. Okay, so now it becomes important to see what price actually achieves. So what we see here is that in this correction we have price attempting to come in with some strength but failing, and strength coming in, and then we see a labored finish to this. Notice how that's different than this. This is more labored. And then we see the bulls here come in more aggressively with more strength and achieve a deeper close. Okay, now there's still enough selling pressure and enough selling in this to achieve that new structure low. Okay, but we already start to notice, okay, that the bulls are getting stronger by the corrections that we're getting. Now, as this is weak, this is stronger, the next one should be stronger as we have less projection, as we have somewhat of a weakening or almost the same pitch as before, but we're getting two out of the three things that tell us that we're progressively getting weaker. That tells us that we should have a deeper correction. Okay, so what we want to see is we want to see price achieve that deep correction and see how price reacts to that. Now what's happening here is we're getting stronger buying, deeper penetration on the depth here. Okay, so that alone gives us, okay, a not so great prognosis for the next type of new structure low that we should get, but that's still the expectation. Now the bears try to come in, and they try to come in hard, but they're met with overwhelming buying pressure here, and they get overthrown. And then price produces another complex correction. But what happens? We test 100% of this previous high here. We didn't make a new structure high, but what happened? We had a 100% correction. What does that tell you from a structure analysis? That is unrealistic to expect a new structure low, okay, based on the fact that we corrected 100%. Price should not have done that. Okay, so now what we're looking for is for either price to produce a higher low or a retest of these lows. It would be an unreasonable expectation to expect price to make a new structure low after a 100% correction. Okay, so what we want to do now is get ready, as price may be changing directions on us. Okay, so we have that. Okay, and then we have price come down and produce that higher low. Okay, and price comes up and makes a weak new structure high, and we know that because we can see the projection here. Oh my goodness, we can see the projection here. So here we have price come down, okay, achieve the new structure low, price come up, tested 100% of the previous high. It would be unreasonable to expect that new structure low. That's red flag number one. So if you're short here, you need to start looking for a graceful exit or a way to get out of this trade possibly. Okay, it most probably will not work out. Okay, now price comes down, okay, produces a higher low, and then makes a new structure high. If you can't see this coming, you don't realize it, that's fine, because the expectation is the expectation until it fails, and that didn't happen until this close right here. But the clear low and the clear high is here, so that's what we will measure. So now we know that this market has done what? Changed directions. Expectation has failed. Okay, so now we need to look at the depth. Okay, so we got the depth, we got decent depth here, we got weak projection. Our expectation off of a weak projection is for a deep correction. Okay, so we expect price to come down pretty deep into the swing. That would be the expectation. So what you want to do is start aligning yourself with the structure in that particular area. So you want to look, you know, on the deeper side of this swing and try to look at this in thirds. You know, the first third of the whole swing, that will be considered a shallow correction. The middle 2/3 will be considered a mid-range correction, and the last 1/3 will be considered the deep correction. So you look for the structure in the area by which you expect that correction to come in, and that will help you assess the best possible area where price should have the reaction that you are expecting. Okay, in this particular case, you know, price came in as deep as expected, and price produced a higher low as expected, as that is the expectation, and the expectation from here is a new structure high. So now we see that price made a slightly better new structure high, but not all too impressive, right? And we had a deep correction, which was deeper than this one. So overall, and we look at our momentum, oh Lord, we look at our momentum and we see that what? Boom, boom, boom. We're flattening out. Depth is increasing. Momentum projection is really not increasing. We're weak here. We're very weak. And what may seem like their strength is really not that much strength at all. Okay? So we start having that. Okay? Now what kind of expectation should we get here moving forward? A deep one, right? That's absolutely correct. So now, not only do we get a deep correction, we got a retest of the lows. Okay? Remember what I said earlier. Okay? It is unreasonable when you get a retest of prior structure that you're going to get that expectation to play out. Okay? It is unreasonable to expect price to come all the way back this way and make a new structure high. Completely unreasonable. Okay? Not to mention that we have a lot of momentum here. Okay? And we have a lot of price action, aggressive selling coming into this area. Okay? Followed by breakdown on the bears. It was their market. Okay? A weak complex correction in the grand scheme of things that was met with what looked like a lot of strength, like a trend that will possibly continue. But when you assess the momentum, the projection, and the depth, we have 2 out of the 3 things, and even the third thing was very weak and in favor, that said this thing is not gaining strength. We're just weakening, we're deteriorating. And now price ultimately makes a retest of the lows. Well, that's the icing on the cake, the nail in the coffin, that price will probably not be able to not only make that new structure high, but will probably, not correct very far and make that new structure low. Okay? Okay, so now we've looked at momentum, we've looked at projection, and we looked at depth. Okay? And how these 3 elements help us formulate, okay, an assessment of the strength and weakness, and whether price is gaining strength or losing strength in the direction of travel. We've seen 2 examples here where 2 out of the 3 elements that we assess are telling us that things are weakening, and we're seeing the same thing moving in this direction. And even though price action, these candles look pretty aggressive and look like there's a lot of buying, and it looks like price is just going to take off and move forever, is really not the case. Okay? And now we're able to see that transition between selling turning into buying as we get a 100% correction, a way deeper than expected correction that helps us come to the understanding that this underlying strength here was just a Hail Mary pass and a hope that it entices enough sellers to continue to take this market down. The same thing happens here. So we have what looks like strength, and then a huge transition on greater momentum that just sort of tells you that we just can't keep climbing anymore, and we're not. Okay? And the expectation from this is a pullback, and it could be deep to either retest these highs, or on the deeper part is, but by looking at the momentum in this and the sheer volume of these candles, and we'll talk more about volume in candles when we speak about bar by bar, so I don't want to incorporate that into here. I think you have enough to absorb here, is that our expectation for a meaningful correction here is just not that strong. Okay? And then our expectation from here will be a new structure high failure, a lower high, and then a new structure low. And as price moves forward, we start to see price achieving that. Okay, so then we have here a further decline on the buying. Look at this, boom, 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 boom. It's just not happening. There's just no buying taking place here. Okay, and then we have once we break this structure, what happens? Expectation now is for a lower high and a new structure low, but we already knew before this occurred that our expectations of that new structural high were just pretty much non-existent. And that is how I'm able to, come up with a realistic expectation as to whether my new structure high or low is likely to succeed or fail. And the importance of that is it helps me filter out trading in directions where the market is just, even though that is my expectation, there's just overwhelming weakness, and that expectation is probably going to fail. Okay, so that adds another layer of depth to the accuracy by which we navigate through these charts and process the information very efficiently and very accurately. Okay, so now we have our first projection. Back to the downside. It looks like price is going to correct here. And again, once we start tying all these together, we'll start looking at, how far we're going to expect things to travel. So one of the things that you want to look at is the depth. The deeper the correction, the weaker the new structure low. Okay, so in the next video, I'm going to go into more detail on this as to how deep the expectations are actually expected to go and how you can assess that. But I wanted you to process the concept of projection, momentum, and depth, and how we use this to help us navigate through these swings to help us assess, overall strength and weakness, and when expectations are likely to play out and when they're likely to fail. And here we have this is the correction. It started here. We have significantly less momentum here. Okay, and we did have a double take on this that really didn't go anywhere. So does that mean that this strength here was possibly weakened a little by some of this buying and some of this structure? Possibly could have been. It could have definitely account for the less momentum here. But our expectation off of this good, decent, strong new structure low and this momentum here is that we still have decent momentum. It is a little weaker. We have good projection. We expect what? We don't expect a whole lot of depth here just because of the sheer strength of this. We expect price to come back to possibly the first third of this overall swing. The first third being somewhere around here, and the second third being somewhere around here. And we're going to do this with Fibonacci retracements where you're going to have a better assessment. Like I said, that's all coming in the next video that I'm going to make on Monday and Tuesday. I want you guys to start processing this from a position of projection, momentum, and depth, and understanding whether price action is weakening or strengthening. And I don't want to make these videos too long. This is by far the complex out of the three main analysis types that we do, and I don't want to overwhelm you and give you too much to process. Okay, I already told you in my post that if we need to take a little more time and make sure we get this right, we'll do that. Okay, it's not, if you didn't get it in the week, you're screwed. That's not the way I function. Okay, I need you to get it right, which is more important than anything else. Okay, so now that we have an expectation of a not so great correction, we can position ourselves looking at the structure in that area, and we have a lot of structure in this general area. Okay, and I would expect price to stay somewhere in this cube. Okay, and we see this area right here that would be consistent with an expectation to have, say, that price is probably not going to get much further than this, and the expectation of new structure low is something that we would expect. Okay, how did I know that? Because I had an expectation. I said price is probably not going to get much further than this. Okay, and what did price do? It tried, but it couldn't. Why? Because I already knew that. I already assessed the strength and the weakness. I already assessed the momentum, the projection, and the depth that we should expect here in the area of structure, consistent with the expectation that I was expecting in the first third of this particular swing, and that's exactly where price came to. And then my expectation was what? A new structure low. Could it be anything else? No. Price made a lower high and a strong new structure low. My expectation is for a generalized weak pullback and then another new structure low. Okay? So now we see that price is correcting here again. But what's happening now? Very interesting. Okay? We're going to look at, and you can look at momentum in the correction as well and see if price is gaining strength or losing strength. Okay? This is a compare and contrast ultimate exercise. We compare everything and we contrast it to what's already there. Compare and contrast, and it helps us formulate an opinion as to whether the market is gaining strength or losing strength. Okay? This is the far left. This is the far right. What's happening with our momentum? It's staying about the same. What's happening with our projection? Weakened a little bit. What's happening with the depth? Well, depth decrease, but the momentum increase. Okay, so that means that we probably will get a mid-range pullback here, which is consistent to what? With the structure. Okay, consistent with the structure. Okay, as you can see, this structure comes back to about 50% of the zero, which is in the middle 2/3. So that would make sense and is in line with our expectation. So if you need a visual, this is what we would expect. And then for price to make what? A new structure low. That will be our expectation. Okay, so now we see what? The price is coming to this area, has reacted favorably to the area, but what's happening here? Strength is increasing, momentum is increasing. Okay, we're getting deeper depth. We have weak, a slightly weaker projection. Our depth was good, but we have two things that are telling us that we're possibly weakening a little bit. And now we have, on the flip side of this, momentum increasing on the buying side. So what does that tell you? That forward progress in this direction will probably not be sustained long term, and that we're probably approaching a point here where price action is going to not get very far. So we're expecting still a new structure low, but possibly an even weaker one than we had here. Okay. Okay, and now we see that price attempted to follow the expectation, and that has not happened. So now we're in a complex correction. Does our expectation of the new structure low need to change? No. Okay. Did we know that price was weakening enough to where the new structure low was going to possibly have issues? You know, I told you that price was going to make a weak new structure low. That becomes an even stronger possibility now, that not only can price make a very weak new structure low, but that expectation is now in trouble, as price is even more aggressive here in this short-term order flow, okay, and producing a new structure high, which is a complex correction, but price has to break this high before we can change that expectation of that new structure high. And that's why we don't change our expectations. What did price do? Where did price come to? Did it get out of my cube? No. Now, are these cubes magical? No, I just happen to see where sellers come in and where buyers come in very tight areas in line with structure to help me project that forward. I see that I have sellers and buyers fighting it out here. I see the same thing in this general area. I see buyers come in there. I see buyers come in there, and this is in particular. I see that the sellers. Well, I drew this before price got there, but I see that these general areas tend to be respected, and it's an acquired skill. But we'll talk about that when we talk about support and resistance and supply and demand. I'm going to teach you how to draw these rectangles. Okay, but as you can see, the level of accuracy and the impact that this has to your overall expectations as to why you don't need to change an expectation, and to know what price should achieve and what price shouldn't achieve becomes very important. Now, I told you that our expectation here was for price to achieve a weak new structure low, right? What did price achieve here? A weak new structure low. What is the momentum here? Since this was the highest point, we need to assess that. Okay, yeah, you can do this, you can do that, you know, as long as you don't fool yourself and tell yourself that you're gaining strength. That's all that really matters. Like I said, I look at this visually. I don't draw all these lines, okay, but I wanted you to see the pitch and the angle by which this occurs. I mean, in this situation is not much different than this. Okay, so if this helps you see it better, that's fine. Okay, these 2 points are nearly the same height, so it didn't really matter to me. This point's a little higher. Okay, as long as you know that your depth is from here to here and that it's much higher than here and here, and that's what matters. Okay, we're getting significant breakdown to the downside. What we knew here, based on this order flow, I told you that price action to the downside will probably not be sustained, and that we would have a weak new structure low. Well, it looks like we're probably going to get a very deep correction here, if not that retest of those highs before it actually fails. So we'll see here. We actually got a failure right off the bat, but we knew that ahead of time that that was a probability because of the extreme breakdown in price action here. So we're already getting longer than I wanted to spend on this video, and that becomes extremely important. That's basically all I have for this video. I will be making another one Monday and Tuesday to help you come to a better understanding as to the depth of the corrections and the extensions with some Fibonacci levels to give you a better representation as to the thirds that I'm talking about. But I want you to have this concept, and I want you to practice it and put it in play. I know this is not easy. I know this is could be challenging, but it's extremely important. If you take the time, really take your time. Don't don't try to run before you can walk. You're going to fall on your face. Take your time. This is not a race. I'm going to be here. I'm going to see this through as long as it takes, so that we can get you to my happy place. It's lonely over here, and I want you guys to get here. But like I said, this is important, and we need to take the order flow process step by step. I don't want it to be overwhelming or confusing, so I don't want to throw too much out there. I wanted you to see the process with the benefit of hindsight, and then how awesome it is moving forward, knowing when those expectations are going to fail. And you're going to know that at least 80 to 90% of the time. So it's a building process. This builds on the previous analysis, and together make a really solid understanding as to not only where price should go, but how far should it go in that particular direction, whether that trend's days are numbered or not. Okay, and every now and then you're going to get surprised, and price is going to all of a sudden put in, you know, a swing that's completely unexpected, a lot stronger than you expected. What does it mean? Well, it may mean nothing. You have to process the information, compare and contrast it to what you already have, and have an opinion, have an expectation. Okay, and go from there. Okay, I wanted you to see these complex changes in direction, and how we knew ahead of time, before that new structure high or low failed, that it was going to fail. And also wanted you to see how I knew ahead of time that price was just not going to get very far in that particular direction. I was able to do that there. I was able to do it here. Okay, I was also able to do it here. So I hope you see the value in this, the power in this, and how this combined with structural analysis is going to make you a master Jedi. Okay, and when we move on to bar by bar, it's going to really make things really crystal clear as far as identifying, and timing your entries, in many cases with pinpoint accuracy. So again, I'm getting past the time that I wanted to spend on this. I want you guys to start getting your feet wet with this, and start processing your charts, not only with the expectation of that new structure high or low, but also, I want you to start telling me from a position of projection, momentum, and depth, whether price is strengthening in favor of the trend or weakening. Okay, I don't expect you right now to be able to tell me when an expectation is likely to fail, when the trend is going to fail, but I want to know that you can tell me that price action is strengthening or weakening in the direction of travel. That's important, okay? Because the next video is going to take that, okay, and we're going to really drill down into how far price should correct, how far price should extend, and we're going to spend another 30 minutes or so in that process. Okay, so don't feel like you need to learn this right away. Okay, this is different components being put together to give you a more complete picture, and that's what I would like you to do Monday, Tuesday, and possibly Wednesday. Okay, I want you to start telling me whether price is strengthening or weakening in the direction of travel. Okay, and whether your expectations are stronger or weaker because of the order flow. Okay, all right, guys. Thank you for your time. I hope this lesson had value, and I expect struggles and stumbles, and that's okay. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with the process. Okay, the more you do it, the easier it's going to get. Okay, revisit this video as many times as you need to. It's there for that reason, so you can visit and revisit it and revisit it, so you can get these core concepts of order flow down in your process. Okay, thank you very much, and we'll talk again soon.